Absolutely. We're going to do roll a little bit different, folks. I'm going to call the name and the jurisdiction, and if there happens to be a proxy here for that jurisdiction, please answer and then give us the name of the proxy too. I'm Mike Baxley. I'm the chair from Cave Creek. And then from Tolleson, Dale Crandall.
Dale Crandall, vice chair.
Apache Junction, Dave Zellner. Avondale, Brett Harris. Buckeye, Mike Izzo. Carefree, Mike Tibbett. Chandler, Lee Ray Hanley.
He's muted, but he's.
I saw him on here. There he is.
Hold down the space bar, Lee Ray. Just okay.
We got an affirmative. We got a video affirmative for him.
Yeah.
El Mirage, David Smith.
Here.
Florence, Michael Ashford. Mountain Hills. Gilbert, Larry Taylor.
Here.
Glendale, Tom Paradise.
That is not accurate. That
Yes,
should be.
I realized that after I said it.
Yeah, I didn't update this. I don't see the new.
I don't see
Glendale
anybody
rep,
from
though.
Goodyear here. Okay. Litchfield Park, Mary Dixon.
I'm here.
I skipped over Goodyear with Randall Westcott. City of Maricopa, Bill Lahr.
I'm here.
Maricopa County, Tom Ewers.
Yep, I'm here. No proxy.
Mesa, John Sheffer.
Here.
Paradise Valley, Bob Lee.
Bob Lee's here.
Peoria, Dennis Chase. Phoenix, Stephen Dudley. Queen Creek, Michael Williams.
Here.
Scottsdale, Michael Clack. Surprise, Jeffrey Rilo. Tempe, Chris Thompson. Wickenburg, Kevin Bruce. Youngtown, Gregory Arrington. And then from the Home Builders Association, Jackson Mole.
I'm here. Good to see everyone.
It's good to see you, Jackson. SRP, Sharon Bonesteel.
Yes, sir. Present.
And from Brown and Associates, Michael McMillan.
And
All
Mr.
right.
Chair, let
Nice.
the record reflect that Randy Westcott is here. He joined just after you called his name.
Yep.
We also have somebody on the phone who I'm not sure who that is.
Would the phone caller please identify themselves?
Phone number ending in 821.
Not hearing anything.
Okay. Okay, well,
Do we have a quorum?
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum, yes.
All right. And with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. With introductions, do we have anybody present that didn't just answer in the call?
Scott Wilkin from MAG staff. And Mary Holmgren and Jeremy Garcia from MAG as well.
Okay. Hi, Mary. And then we have a caller.
Stephen from Phoenix.
All right.
Oh,
Stephen
okay,
Dudley is
that's
now here.
Stephen. And then we also have a special guest who may have just disappeared. Oh, there he is. Ryan Paris, you want to?
My name is Ryan Paris. I'm from the Arizona Department of Housing.
All right, do we have anybody else? Don't believe so. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 3. It's going to be approval of the October 16th, 2019 meeting minutes. Here at, as Scott said, our second annual Building Code Committee meeting.
Well, this is Tom Ewers. I'll move to approve the minutes of October 16th, 2019.
We have a first. Do we have a second?
I second.
David Smith, second. All right, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Not hearing any opposed. The ayes clearly have it. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 4. It's a call to the audience. This is where we give an opportunity to members of the public to address the Building Codes Committee on items that are not on the agenda and that are within the jurisdiction of MAG, or on items on the agenda for discussion only, but not for action. We will request that everybody keeps their comments to 3 minutes, and we'll allow a total of 15 minutes for the call to the audience agenda item. Scott, do we have anybody that would like to address the committee?
We do not have any comments, Mr. Chair.
All right. Moving on to the next agenda item, we'll have comments from the committee. And here we're going to have an opportunity for the Building Codes Committee members to present any brief on summary of current events. The Building Code Committee is not allowed to propose, discuss, deliberate, or take action at the meeting on any matter in the summary. With that, does anybody like to bring anything forward to the committee? All right, I'm hearing none, Scott. We're making record time on this, guys. Moving on to agenda item number 6 is going to be a presentation by Ryan Paris from the state of Arizona Department of Housing, and he'll provide an update on the rulemaking process for closed panel construction. Ryan, the floor is yours.
Hello and good afternoon, everybody. I actually believed that I had this big article that I was going to have to present to you today, and I went to my notes and there was none. And so then I scrambled and I went through all of the items to find out where GERC and was on the rule package, as I hadn't been following it. And I spoke with Tara, and I spoke with David, and I spoke with several members of who's been processing the GERC and the rule changes, and they said, listen, it hasn't been completed yet. It's set to go to GERC on December 1st. So that's the rule changes that we presented to you guys before, and that has been given out. Those are, we believe, will be approved through the GERC process. A couple of items that have slowed us down in this is that, for one, what we did present the first time, they said there was too much of an impact on changing the codes the way that we were about to change them to go to the 2018. And this is, I don't know if you guys know what the GERC process is, but basically it's to make it legal. And so we had to reword some items within the rule package to appease them. And that has been done exactly how they've asked. Also, Katura has moved out of Arizona, and they were the ones that pushed for the legislation change of the closed panel construction, the rewording, I should say, because all it was a rewording of closed panel construction to module. And they have moved their entire outfit to California about a week after this was approved. We're not exactly
Not like
sure. Go
there's less regulation there.
Yeah, it sounded like a cost-saving measure that they weren't even aware. In fact, the people that were working to get this approved, they actually terminated them. So there was a terminated, let go, or laid off, something like that. I shouldn't say terminated, but so there was something there. We weren't really privy to the whole entire information, but Katerra did move, which meant that we had a little bit more breathing room because there is nobody licensed or even applied for a license to do this type of work, or have they, asked for any plan review. So that gave us a little bit more time. On December 1st is when we expect those to be approved, and along with the 2018 codes for the ADOH. Right now we're on 2009. And so once that happens, it's usually about 60 days afterwards, we have to give a grace period, and then it'll be approved. And the 7 or 8 pages that I expected to be able to tell you what was going on, I have a half a page, and that's about it. And I appreciate everybody's time today.
Anybody have any questions for Ryan? Hey, Ryan, I have a question now. Now that what is the driving force behind the rulemaking position process, other than the fact that it's already in process and going forward?
That's the only driving force. We have to legally make rules in place for anybody that requests closed panel construction. So that's the only driving force that we have right now. And unfortunately, we work with a lot of the factories already that do closed panel construction, and none of them have even really brought anything to the table. There was a couple of projects that they were talking about. There's one currently going on in Tempe, but it's actually open panel construction, and they wanted to do closed panel construction with it. So with that being said, there's no driving force with our office to push, being that even if they were to bring plans to us, our plan review department would take about 45 days to get through. And so at this, we know that we're probably going to be right in line with the rules to be approved in our office. And so within the 45 days of if they were to submit something, but we haven't heard anything either. We haven't heard of any activity. And I don't know if you guys have heard of any activity or even any request about closed panel. So we would enjoy it, but we haven't had anything come through.
All right. Has anybody in any of the jurisdictions had anybody approach him for closed panel construction at all? I see Randy waving his hands. I'm guessing Goodyear.
Yeah. So there has been talk, Ryan, out here about a project that wants to do a 3-story closed panel R2 construction, and they came to me right about the time we first started talking about the closed panel, when you all hosted the meeting downtown. Right around that time was when they first came to me. I haven't heard anything from them lately. However, there's a lot of stuff going on in Goodyear. I wouldn't be surprised if they were back on my doorstep here pretty quick. And so with that, if they show up, and you don't have the rules in place yet, would that be something where they would still need to go through the state, or would they be going through the city specifically for that?
Since the legislation has passed, we do have the jurisdiction. I did clarify that, and the reason being is that was one of the main questions that I had. Would we be able to retain it, even though we didn't have the rules to establish? And that, what I got out of from the Attorney General's office was that if no matter what, if it went through plan review, our rules would be approved about at the same time. And then they would also it would take them 60 days for them to be approved to even have a factory manufactured license. And I believe 75, I could be wrong on the time frame, if they were to apply for like a typical style of certain buildings, meaning for plan review and everything to end. So I think we're in line to have those rules in place. We weren't expecting them to be delayed as they are. But if you've ever dealt with GERC, this is the way we want it written, and then you bring it back and it gets a little bit different. And so they want it written so that it doesn't affect a lot of people, and that's exactly what we did, and minimal. So that's what we did.
Okay.
But and I apologize, if that happens and they do land on your doorstep, let's keep the communication with me, and I promise you I will jump in front of whatever I have to make that happen, and to either get it back over to you, because that is one thing we could do and that's what we ultimately want to do, is get it back over to the locals. And so if we need to, just to abide by the state statutes, we could write an MOU, a mutual of understanding, that you guys will just complete everything, and we'll just move forward with it. So that's very easily done. And I can tell you that our department and myself, we've been working very hard at those mutual of understandings and the ISAs to make sure that those, we don't impede any construction.
Sure. Well, I'm not so sure I want to take over the full review of it myself. So you don't have to worry about me asking for you to release it to me. I just want to know how to go about it if someone does show up. You have jurisdiction, and I would want to follow that path. But again, even if they show up now, it's still going to be a while before it happens. So we'll have plenty of time to coordinate, and maybe I'll be your guinea pig. So.
Well, I hope so. And I can promise you, the one thing about the state, we were really trying to be proactive on this one, because we really weren't proactive when in the beginning of it. That's how the legislation works. We don't know what's going to get approved and what doesn't, or what is going to get approved and what doesn't get approved. And so on this one, we were really taken back by it. At the last minute, it was approved. And so we didn't really have a chance to work on it. We've really worked hard on the diligence and the explanation of it. And we didn't expect it to be exactly where it's at right now. So we've had to learn through the GERC system just to change a lot of our rules and understanding.
Okay, thanks.
It struck me, especially since we've been, a year in the making, is all the members of the committee have an understanding of what the legislation said and what the rules are going forward are going to be? If they don't, raise your hand and we'll get Ryan to explain it a little bit. Bob's saying he doesn't. I got you. And so does Dale. Ryan, could you give a brief synopsis of, what the legislation said and how it gave you the state of manufactured housing, the authority, and then where it's going from there?
Yeah, basically what they were trying to do was reword any closed panel construction. The way the legislation read, any closed panel construction, they were ultimately, and I want to put this in without going into great legal terms, because that's not what I'm real good at, but I want to put it in the terms of how we can understand it. But how I understand it is that the way that they reworded open or closed panel construction and added module. And when you did that, what happened is it gave us jurisdiction. That's all they did, is they considered it that the factory, it was now considered a factory building. And that got us into the factories and got us into the agreements with factories that are in China or anywhere in the world that these closed panel construction units could be coming from. And that means that our state inspectors could be in those factories at any time. But that also meant, and it affected you guys, because you guys were watching the installation of these units. And what it did for Katura or any of these companies is it took the third-party company that was inspecting these and all the different jurisdictions that we have in Arizona and all over the world, that anything that comes into Arizona is going to be under the one code, and that's a 2009, currently the 2009 code, because all modules and closed panel construction are built to that code. Now, with that being said, let's just use Katura as an example, because I want to use them. If they wanted to build something in Cave Creek, Scottsdale, Pima County, they can build it the exact same way. And that's what gave them the opportunity. Now, your guys' special conditions and your guys' special understandings, all of those items weren't affected. It was just how they were going to build it. Because from what we understand, they did this in Texas or California, both, I believe it was both, and they were really struggling with the different codes. And so it was costing huge amounts of money, because one jurisdiction was in 2018, one was in 2009. We heard that some were in 2006. Some were still on the U codes. So you could just imagine what they were trying to battle with. So our department at first was thrown back, and then it was brought back in thinking, you know what, our director, Tara, said, it sounds like the locals don't mind looking at these, but what we need to focus in on is the factories and making bonds with those locals that do want to look at them, and training our guys to understand and look at them also. I was able to look at a couple of different items, panels that they built all the way through. It was a little different for even myself, and I look at modules all day, and I've also been a local building inspector. So I understand the difficulties on both sides. What the goal was is to make one code instead of multiple codes. And that's what they changed in a little bit of wording, changed the legislation.
Thank you. Bob, did that kind of clarify your what was going on here?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Ryan? Not? Oh, Jackson does. All right, Jackson, fire away.
Just one quick question, Ryan. I just want to make sure I'm clear just procedurally where you're at. You've already done the study session with GERC, gotten their feedback, made revisions, and it will be up for final adoption early part of December. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. And I appreciate you clarifying that.
Yeah,
that's exactly what I should have said. I appreciate you saying that.
I happen to know a little bit about the GERC process, so.
So you know the process, and you know.
I do. Yeah.
And Ryan, you said currently it was 2009, but it's changing to the 18. Is that what I got from you?
Yes, that's another part of the procedure of the GERC, is that we put in there that we wanted to change our building codes to, and we don't adopt, so we have to change a state statute and a rule, and so it's a rule process, and we had to change it to the 2018 code, and we all said this should be easy. We should be done within a year, and we started before the 2018 even existed. So you can just imagine where we're. Well, I think that it'll get adopted. Well, I think that it'll get approved December 1st, is all of everybody's feeling, and then it'll go into effect 60 days after, just in the amount of time that 2021 will come out. So we've all said that hopefully it comes out later in the time. So, but yes. All
right. And I had one more question. This whole process of with the state taking over, a handful of jurisdictions have amendments to their 18s. Cave Creek's one. I know Scottsdale's one where they require sprinklers, no matter what the building is going to be. How are you addressing that?
That's a very good question. And in fact, I was on the phone today about this same exact thing for modular units. Any type of modular units, manufactured homes, closed panel construction, are special conditions like that. And all you have to do on your permit is require those special conditions to be there. It's required by the broker in the factory to know your special amendments. It's not really required by us to look them up for them. And we explain that all the time. And when they build these units and they say it cost us an extra $18,000 to put a sprinkler system in, we have to explain to them that unfortunately the broker that sold you that home or sold you that unit should have been well versed in everybody's special conditions. And that's, so if it's an amendment, definitely make sure it's put on as a special condition, because we will follow those and we'll make sure that those are in place. So when you guys do come out there and do review it, you know, for whatever reason at all, you'll know that that's done. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank
Mr.
you, Ryan.
Chair,
Yes.
I just have one question to help me when I write the minutes. What does GERC stand for, or what how do I put that in the minutes?
Scott, it's the Governor's Regulatory Review Council.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Ryan, thank you for that. And would you please, when you actually do get it back in place and we have another meeting, would you come back and explain what the final outcome has been?
I will, and this is on one of my special projects, and it was in David's special projects also, and that's why I expected this big long different deals. Special projects are the directors on our notes. The directors put as many notes as they can in on them, and so the administrator and the director on our department, they both work together and they'll dump notes in there. So I have moved that file over to myself, so I will know exactly more about it the next time. And I appreciate everybody having me here today.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Moving on to the next agenda item, is item number 7. And this is going to be a discussion about permits and inspections for solar D rates and the related chicken and the egg syndrome. And Sharon is here to help us through this conversation. Sharon.
All right. So can you see my screen?
We can.
Let me,
Looks like you have 2 presentations open.
there we go.
Nice.
Now we got one.
That's always much better. Well, we've been having a few issues, and I have found that the MAG Building Code Committee is a great place to air out some of these issues, concerns, and lay out possibilities and that sort of thing. So I appreciate the floor today. And so without further ado, we want to talk about a couple of issues. One that was of the original narrow focus, and this much wider focus. Coordination of the city clearances related to D rates and other solar related things. And we've also had some issues related to vertical cable trays used in some of these projects. So we have a case study that I want to present that is a large commercial installation. There were actually 3 of them in 3 different cities. And due to the size of the solar, they needed to do a supply side tap. So that's essentially coming in on the service side of the meter. And so the contractor needed to provide a new service conductor to the new service for interconnecting the solar. And on the approved plans that SRP blessed, we're talking about conduit. So non-metallic, rigid metallic conduit. So it was pretty clear on the plans. And we get plans for any solar interconnection that goes on our system. So in addition to your jurisdiction looking at them, we have a team that looks at them also from the standpoint of making sure they comply with our standards in terms of a safe installation on our grid. And one of the things we ran into was out in the field. They changed from those rigid metal conduit to utilizing cable trays. Now, a lot of us have used cable trays inside, but they're usually horizontal. That's how they're designed. Those two side rails are little I-beams, and that's what helps them span distances and carry the weights of various cables that people run through them. And normally they're in an open air situation inside a conditioned space. Well, this is not an approved method of running service conductor and will not be approved moving forward. So we wanted to make sure that we got that information to you, and so that you know where we stand if these happen to cross your desk. The cable trays may or may not be rated for this particular installation. We couldn't find any rating for it, but more importantly, they're weakening it by cutting the holes in the side. And in general, we had multiple problems with this. We are working with the contractor to accept these, and I think 2 of the 3 locations we allowed them to remain because they were far enough along. And I'm sorry, I keep getting beeped. So we are working with the contractor to resolve this as smoothly as possible. The other issue we ran into was the use of zip ties. Now there are metal cables covered with a coating. One brand is called Sun Bundlers. They are UL listed for UV and the potential exposure of being out in the sun, but basic zip ties are not. And we also feel, our engineering department has looked at it, and we feel that is an inappropriate way to be connecting these conductors to the cable tray, and we will not be approving those moving forward. So in addition to that, if you look at the picture on the left, there's no cover on these, which certainly as a vandal prone situation with vandals stealing copper, that's not a good situation. The contractor did intend to place covers over these. In other words, metal sheets of metal over the top that were screwed down. Part of the problem we found was that there were a lot of gaps in that installation that would make it possible for somebody to reach their hand through there and still touch some of those conductors. So we're trying to get the word out that cable tray is not an approved method of running a service conductor and will not be approved moving forward. And we also were dealing with the situation of these changes appearing on the job site after we had approved plans that had the proper installation method. But that's something you guys have seen before, you know, that's not unusual. So anyway, we did try to work with the customer to get this resolved as best as possible. So here you can see one of the other store installations where they're essentially, here's the cable tray, they're coming out of their service with the rigid conduits here that have cut through the side of the cable tray, and that's going into the service entrance section. And we don't believe that the service entrance section was listed or labeled to have that kind of a side penetration either. So we had a number of issues with this, and so thank you for that item. And hopefully if any of your solar plans examiners or electrical inspectors have any further questions regarding this, please have them email them to me, and I will get them to the solar team who is coordinating this. So that's subject 1. And then subject 2 is, I've had conversations with a number of building officials regarding city clearances for D rates, whether or not permits are required or not required. How can we coordinate between the utility and the jurisdiction to make sure that the amount of time that the customer is without power is as short as possible? And part of what we, of course, are dealing with is the critical nature of this in the summer when we really cannot leave people without proper air conditioning. A lot of times we are put in a difficult situation of the contractor calling and saying, you know, I need the inspection now because I've already disconnected this, and chicken and egg, and we've seen a lot of attempts to try to get across to the solar contractors the need to make sure that they have all their approvals ahead of time, that they have pre-scheduled some of these shutdowns, so that we're not sitting in the situation where we look at an installation and it's incorrect, we can't approve it, and suddenly the customer is stuck, and either your guys have to come back again the same day or the next morning, and these are not good situations for our customers. Just to kind of give an example, we were trying to sort out what some of the different situations were. So, you know, just looking at a handful of cities, you know, who requires a permit for solar? Well, you know, yes and no. Some just require clearance, some require a permit, some require a permit only under certain circumstances. Then we got into the D rates. You know, do you require a permit for that? Don't you? But, you know, again, some cities had special qualifying conditions. So as you can see from this chart, there is a lot of difference between just these 5 locations. And thank you all very much for requiring permits on batteries. If any of you have taken my energy storage safety class, I thank you again. We want to make sure those are installed safely. So moving forward, what we're trying to do is figure out a better way to make sure we're coordinating with each other and taking care of the customers. So in cities where no permit is issued, or where they just want to make it easier, you know, we have seen this particular policy comes out of Pinal County. 7 conditions. We want a licensed contractor or qualified individual, and they define that per Arizona revised statutes. You know, all the work is done according to their adopted codes. The overcurrent protective device is listed. The maximum capacity modified as 200 amps or less. Overcurrent protection meets this requirement. Device is rated, etc. And prior to the commencement of the work, the contractor or qualified individual replacing the breaker shall verify the safety of the electrical equipment by ensuring that no code violations exist on the equipment being served. And one of the questions we're really not seeing asked, as it should be on every case, is the original service entrance section even rated and listed to be derated? Some are, some aren't. A lot of the older ones are not. A lot of the newer ones are. So that's another question. For comparison, we have what they're trying to do in Queen Creek is really make a strong statement to the contractors to make sure that they have made their request for this service outage 48 hours in advance, because what they're really trying to do is get ahead of making sure they have inspectors available to do these inspections right on our heels and get the customer back in power. In Mesa, they have a procedure that the permit tech goes through if somebody calls and says, do I need a permit for this or not? Is derating of the breaker allowed per the UL listing of the service entrance section, et cetera. Listed for backfeed, does meet 2719, does modify, okay? If you answer yes to all questions, no permit is required. However, when our guys get out there, they don't know what the determination was by the jurisdiction in order to be able to tell that the jurisdiction has approved it. And we're trying to, support the jurisdictions in making sure that we're not turning power on to a place that hasn't gotten a proper final, that we're not turning power off at a place that hasn't submitted permit requirements. We also start to get into this when we're looking at demolitions of existing structures, and we want to make sure that they've gotten a permit for demo before we go in and remove the meter and that sort of thing. So all of these efforts on the part of these jurisdictions is looking for ways that we can coordinate with each other better, get more consistency. SRP is planning on taking the best information we get from this conversation, from our research, and from any feedback I get from you guys over the next month to try to get some good information out to the solar contractors that are our preferred providers, and so that we can get everybody the best information. We are still seeing items like Mesa does not require permits for photovoltaic installed under an incentive program. Well, we're not providing incentives for solar installations anymore, and we haven't for a number of years. So if that's the base criteria, there's some issues there. So I encourage you to send me some ideas, send me some solutions, send me some thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts today. And I am always in favor of consistency between the jurisdictions. It makes it so much better for the contractors if they are getting consistent requirements. So I thank you for your time and appreciate you giving me the floor today. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sharon. Does anybody have any questions or comments for Sharon?
Crickets.
I'm not hearing any, and I'm only seeing a few of the screens. So
No crickets. I've got something to say.
You always do.
I'm trying to take over for Bob Lee. So, yeah, you're a good mentor, Bob. Thank you for that. So, Sharon, I know that we don't currently have SRP in our jurisdiction. Soon we will with the water agreement, but that's for water, not electricity. But one of the things that we do to help coordinate the D rates and stuff in the city of Goodyear is that we, when the contractor submits the request for the inspection for the D rate, we have them provide the number of the person that's the tech that's going to be doing the work. And then we have our inspectors reach out to them first thing in the morning and find out, hey, about what time are you going to be ready to be inspected, to be powered back up? And then we also coordinate with the service providers, local representative, whoever's in the area. So we try and triangulate all three of those folks on a time frame, and we've found good success with that.
Good. And I certainly will coordinate with APS to make sure that whatever I gain from this, I will share and discuss with them, and hopefully be able to come back with something that we too can be consistent on, because I know that's annoying also. So thank you, Randy.
So Sharon, I know for us, now we're in APS territory, we don't have SRP here, but we've pretty much followed the same thing that Goodyear is doing, where, you know, we try and set an appointment and go out. Our biggest challenge is when there is a D rate done and you go out to see the panel and the inspector shows up and they didn't actually wire it the way it was supposed to be wired. And I don't know how you're going to solve that. That's not going to be, because you're not heating it back up until it's actually done correctly.
Right.
But that's a different discussion, I guess, is because I don't know how we fix that piece.
Well, and our guys get it when we go out to light it up, and we're looking in the panel because we're trying to verify our stuff, and we're saying, this is not to code, but it's really not what I'm hearing supposed to be inspecting. And I have basically coached our guys that we need to have a good sense of balance. If they see something that they feel is a definite electrical hazard, I have instructed them to pick up the phone and call the jurisdiction, send them a picture and say, are you guys good with this? Or what do you need from me? How can I help? So, you know, we all deal with really good contractors who do great work, and we all deal with some of the lesser characters who aren't as careful or conscientious. And it's a lifelong battle for our industry, and we'll just keep doing our best to make sure they're as trained as well as possible. And which brings me to one last little point. SRP is sponsoring Don Counselor and Mike Ornorski to work with me to create a solar installation plan review, 2020 National Electric Code class, with hopefully a webinar with some good videos from the Independent Electrical Contractors Training Facility, primarily in the hopes that we can get some better consistency and that everybody gets some good training. That training video that we make, webinar that we make, will be free, and it will be utilized both by SRP and the Independent Electrical Contractors Association to get the training out to as many people as possible. So.
Thank you, Sharon.
One more question.
You got it.
Sharon, are you familiar with the solar app that the Department of Energy has provided funding for? And it's related to, I think, predominantly residential solar installations, but it's an app where they've calculated, they've got all this stuff figured into the app, and the applicant can merely fill out the information and it will generate whether this is a code compliant submittal or non-code compliant submittal, and they're working with different jurisdictions around the country. It's still being funded by the Department of Energy, but eventually they're going to turn, I don't know all the particulars, but essentially it's a free service to jurisdictions if they're willing to try it out. Have you heard about that?
I haven't, but some of our solar department individuals may have. I'll touch base with them and see if they've tried it, and we'll certainly look into it.
Yeah, because they're trying to standardize it across the nation as opposed to, locally, which, yeah, that might be a tall task, but, it seems to have some merit. It seems like a pretty good program, and they say that it can integrate with permitting software. So, and you could take a look at it from a provider standpoint on whether or not you felt it was meeting stuff as well.
Certainly, I'll follow up on looking into that and see what our solar team thinks of that.
Okay.
All right. Sharon, I guess at this time, yep. I was gonna say, can you stop sharing your screen?
I had a question for Sharon, if I can ask. This is Dino Cardo with the City of Tempe.
Sure, go ahead, Dino.
Hi, Dino.
How are you all? It was a nice presentation. Thank you. We certainly sympathize with your concerns and some of the topics that you raised there. We do drop everything inspections and reviews where needed. We call them drop everythings, or we sort of rise to the call, right?
We call them fire drills.
Fire drills, yeah, putting out fires, yeah. So yes, we do try to be proactive. There's a lot of communication, right, from the plan review side all the way through. We do require permits. I noticed Tempe wasn't on your list, so that could be my fault. But I'll be happy to give you some of that data if you want. But we require permits for everything. Commercial, residential, D rates, PVs, all of it. So we require permits for pretty much everything. We put together a PV team in our organization. And that PV team had some really very great minds related, in our internal great minds that we've identified that are responsible for PV reviews. They are sort of unique. It's sort of a specialized task, right?
It is.
It is, especially battery storage, right? We know that. But these individuals are very respected and identified for their knowledge and skill set. We put together this team and they developed a PV checklist. That PV checklist was done as a response to a request from a group, an external group, external customers that came into the city seeking a PV standardized plan. Okay. They were seeking relief in the process of an expedience at a high level, a standard plan. Now we have standard plans for pools. At times there's residential projects that come in with standardized plans for models and such, right? We all are familiar with that process. So we try to employ that in the PV category. I think it's something that we could do. We created that first step. We were going to provide them this checklist of things that we identified that those plans have to capture. And we were prepared to provide it to them, and then they sort of bailed, to be honest with you, to be blunt. We haven't heard back. So we try to do our work on our end, just to give you a picture of, and to share with the group and the other municipalities in the area, to say, what about standardized plans for PVs? That might be something that, you may want to consider. Maybe that's something we could talk about. So I just wanted to throw that out. The other thing I wanted to share with you on the technical front, Sharon, obviously this is your forte, so that's great. To be honest, it's not mine. I don't have a great background related to PV, but my electrical code background is there, so I certainly can evolve a little bit. But I will say that power control systems in the 2020 NEC, it is a big change. It's something I think we have to consider. I would just offer that it'd be great to see you present something on power control systems. And that's all I had.
All right, Dino, I will raise the issue of the power control systems when we put together our class. And if you would send me what you've got on that checklist and the PV standardized plans, I can see what our solar team thinks, and perhaps we'll get with your team and come back to MAG with a standard plan. This is kind of what we did with the car charger, the EV charger plan. Now, I've got Bob Runge with a list of corrections he still wants made on that master plan that we all approved. But I'm a firm believer in model plans. I think if there's anything we can do to make it easy for the contractor to pull a permit and do the right thing, we should do it. So I appreciate your sharing. And as somebody I know from Con Ed said, please steal my stuff. So thank you very much.
Hey, Sharon.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear me now?
Yes.
You know that when you were talking about those cable trays, I was actually getting ready to call that contractor back. They've still provided absolutely nothing to us. They went silent after I told them they had to give us revisions before they did things.
Yeah.
So I was getting ready to call them back and just say they can't do it. I can't find a way to, I mean, certainly not with those little metal zip tie things.
Yeah.
And for the rest of the people, I don't know if you know, but solar design now, they don't have designers doing anything. They're in California. They look at an aerial photograph of the house, decide where they're going to put the panels. They plug in the size of the system, and then those plans are just generated. They don't actually draw anything out. They plug stuff into a computer and it just spits out. That's why you see Tesla plans always seem to look better than some of the local guys.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I did my best to make sure we didn't identify the customer or the contractor, because you know, when a contractor changes from the approved plans and gets us in the field where we're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place trying to take care of the customer, it's not a good situation for anybody. And you really hate to come back and really nail the people. But on the other hand, you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. Now, there are, like I said, the sun bundlers. They're UV rated. They're listed for exterior use by Underwriters Lab. But again, as Robert Runge taught me, sometimes you have to dig a little deeper in the code when you start to realize that, yeah, that's probably not an appropriate way to connect on a vertical installation. So, yeah, a lot of issues there. And Joel Dickinson is our PE in the solar department on the commercial side. And, you know, he certainly had some heated discussions with the contractor to explain the situation. And we appreciate your support, and we appreciate the fact that you were willing to jump in and get involved with us and trying to find the best solutions for the customer. So we'll continue to team with you and make sure we get this done right.
I tried to figure out a way to make that system work, and I just can't. So, and I tried hard.
You know, on the surface, it looks like such a good idea, and then you think about it and go,
it does. I like the DLO cable, so I wasn't worried about people touching it. But yeah, just these systems are supposed to last 30 years, and I can't see that happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for that. And I like, I guess APS, if they're on the line side, they require rigid metal conduit. And so if SRP says that's what we want,
so do we.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Like I said, that's what our standard is. It says right in our standard, rigid metal conduit. So, but you know, just like you guys, when somebody comes in with an innovative way to do it, we certainly want to be open to listening to the conversation, making sure that we look at all the aspects of it and not immediately just say no. Because like I said, on the surface, it looks like a great idea, but so thank you
Yeah.
for your help, Leroy. I really appreciated it.
Thank you, guys. Anybody else have any comments for this topic?
I just want to say, Sharon, I dumped the link for that solar app in the chat.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You can take that if you want.
I could steal that. Great.
All right. Thanks, Sharon. Moving on to agenda item number 8, remote video.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we move on, I just wanted to note for the record and for anybody watching, Jeffrey Rollo from City Surprise has joined us, as well as Dino Accardo from the city of Tempe. They've joined us since we did the roll call at the beginning.
Thank you.
Oh,
all right.
and one last quick note. I know, Scott, you asked for a copy of the slides. We need to do a little bit of editing before we give them to you as a PDF, but you'll have them within a day or two.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, remote video inspections and the future of building inspections. And I see Mr. Larry Taylor leaning in on his camera there so he can go ahead and present to us. Larry, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. I've been having problems with my internet connection. Not sure why, but.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, good. Because you guys have been cutting in and out on me. Let's see. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we see it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not what I wanted to do.
It's the downside of sharing your screens.
Yeah, I've never had that happen before.
What you need to do, Larry, is you need to, when you go to share screens, it'll give you an option of choosing your left or your right screen.
Okay, you cut out on me, Sharon.
Okay, stop sharing your screen.
Okay.
Once you have done that, go back into the share screen and it will ask you which, are you working on a 2 screens or only one?
I'm just working on one.
Oh. Then you need to go into a slideshow presentation, which is up at the top of your screen. It says remote virtual inspections, and then go to the left of that. There's an arrow pull down, and then the symbol to the left of that, click on that. The symbol to the left of that little arrow pointing down. Not transitions.
There you go.
It's when you hover over it, it says start from the beginning.
Wait, I'm not sure what you're talking about, on my PowerPoint or on my.
Yes, on your PowerPoint. Not that, the one to the left, that one. Click on that. The wizard Mary Holgren says Control 5 should also work.
You guys still there? I lost you for a minute.
We're still here.
Yeah.
We just don't have your screen, Larry.
Didn't Larry send his slides to you, Scott?
I do. Would you like me to pull it up, Larry?
Suggestion, Larry, maybe if you stop your video, it'll provide you more bandwidth so you don't cut out as much?
Yeah, I have been in a lot of meetings all day today, and for some reason, with this Zoom is the only one I've been having problems with.
Didn't you see the Aurora Borealis behind me? Causing you problems, Larry.
Dale, when I look at you, I just think of Cheech and Chong.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, man. With the Aurora Borealis, Cheech and Chong kind of comes to mind.
That's good company.
Larry, I can pull up your presentation for you here in a second
Okay.
if you want me to control it.
Yeah, that'd probably be best.
Okay. Okay.
There
Can
we
you
go.
see it now?
Yes. Can everybody else see that?
Yes.
Got it.
So again, just to give you some background of where we started and why we started doing video inspections or virtual inspections. I don't like to call them videos because we don't save the video. We're not really doing a video. It's just a virtual view. But if you guys remember when Tucson started a program, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago, when I heard that they had started a virtual inspection program, I reached out to Clayton, the building official there in Tucson, and he and I chatted for a while about what kind of inspections they were doing. My interest was really piqued, but I really walked away from that conversation thinking, probably not for Gilbert, maybe in a larger area where you have a lot of windshield time, it may make more sense. At the time, they were using Skype in Tucson, and they were paying for the business use of Skype, and so there were I just figured at the time it wasn't for Gilbert, but again, my interest was piqued. Then last fall, when we went to the code hearings or the ABM for ICC, I signed up for a class on virtual inspections that was put on and taught by mainly by the building official from North Las Vegas, but Clark County building official was also there to help. And I was really inspired from that class, and I came out of it thinking there is something here Gilbert can use and that will really help our customers. And the biggest thing, and this kind of ties in with what Sharon was just talking about with D rates. They mentioned D rates in that class, and we had been getting a lot of pressure from the electrical contractors. Just like some of you had mentioned, we need you here right now. And always in the past, we did something similar to what Goodyear and Cave Creek did. We would usually have them call us in the morning, and we'd tell them, find out what time they needed us there. We'd give them a 2-hour window. And a 2-hour window always seemed to work, but we started getting a lot of pressure to, we need you here now, right now, because they're pulling the meter. They're not leaving until you're here to inspect and can approve it so they can reset the meter. And so we thought with video inspections or virtual inspections, an inspector can pull over the side of the road or be at a parking lot or just about anywhere, and on his iPad, all of my inspectors have iPads, and so they're able to do those virtual inspections pretty much on a moment's notice now. We came back, we did meet with SRP. Sharon set us up with the right people to talk to them about what they needed instead of a green tag, because we're not there now to green tag the panel again. We worked with one specific electrical contractor that was doing a lot of D rates in Gilbert, and we started a pilot program just for D rates. That specific electrical contractor that we were using, they were also using iPads in the field for all their workers. And so we decided to use FaceTime for our platform. And that's what we were piloting. And we started testing different scenarios with our inspectors using FaceTime. And that's where we were when COVID hit. And go ahead and go to the next slide, if you will, Scott. When COVID hit, we expanded the program, and I basically said, okay, inspectors, from here on out, we're requiring that all remodels and additions that are occupied, where we have people living there, as well as D rates, have to be done virtually. There's no choice because of COVID. We don't want to put you in a situation where people are living and you're coming in contact with them. We don't want, they don't want us there either. And so we started, we expanded our virtual inspection program to include all of those remodels and additions where people were living. At the same time, we expanded our platform. We use, in Gilbert, we use Microsoft Teams for a lot of our meetings. And so we also, for those that had Android phones or did not have an Apple product, then we use Microsoft Teams. Certainly there's other options out there, and those are just the two that we're comfortable using right now. At the same time, we asked the inspectors to really push the limits on what they were doing. Certainly this was a time that we felt like, you know, if there's anything, you know, if there's ever going to be a time when contractors need to take a lot of responsibility for their work, this is it. People are going to be understanding if something minor gets missed, and we need to just push the limits and see what works and what doesn't for virtual inspections. And so we really started expanding, and you know, you can imagine some inspectors had more of a comfort level with it than others. Some of my younger techie guys loved it and ran with it. Some of the other older guys that had been around forever, like me, you know, were a little bit more hesitant to embrace it. But I understand they want to make sure that they're seeing everything they need to see. I did look at, I attended a couple of webinars during the same time period, and that was put on by ICC. And again, the city of North Las Vegas was involved in that. And they indicated that when COVID hit, they sent everybody home, and they started doing all their inspections, literally all of them, virtually. Having said that, they also recognized that there were things that they weren't catching. And so they had a disclaimer when you scheduled an inspection online. There was a disclaimer form that the contractor was taking full responsibility for the work. Anyway, from there, we just started working on the tools that the inspectors needed. It became evident that, you know, trying to look at inspections on an iPhone, even on an iPad, even though it works, and they still sometimes use it if they're in the field. We sent them home with their desktop PCs and a monitor. I got them a second monitor. Go ahead and go to the next slide, if you will, Scott. This is my office setup, and I just kind of put my old iPad out there to show. We got adapters that will attach the iPads or an iPhone to the monitor so that you can see the picture that you're viewing, the virtual inspection. You get a bigger picture of it. My plan reviewers actually use two 42-inch screens for their plan reviews, and so I have an inspector that will actually go in the office, and since we don't have anybody else in there, and they're using a large 42-inch screen for their virtual inspections, and they really like that. We also got them a second monitor, sent them home with a second monitor, so that they can view the electronic plans on one monitor while they're viewing the inspection on the other, and that's been working pretty well for them. Next slide. So recognizing that what we're doing today is all about safety. It's not about efficiency. We were just trying to keep people safe. And in fact, I went to the extent of telling the inspectors, when you're on a subdivision, I want you to only go do the inspections that have to be done in person. So frame inspection is not conducive to, you know, on residential is not conducive to, you know, virtual inspections. And so they'll go do frame inspections in person. You know, a lot of strap and shears especially 2 stories are very difficult to do virtually. And so I kind of leave those up to the inspector to deal with how they want to deal with them. Again, encouraging them to do as much as they can virtually. I also understand that conditions sometimes dictate that we need to be on site. And so I want them to be able to make those decisions. But right now it's all about safety for the inspectors. They do wear PPE when they're out there in the field. They do try to distance, but we try not to have contact where we don't need it. So they'll go on site and they'll do their inspections that they have to do on site. Now they'll tell the superintendent, when I get home this afternoon, I'll contact you, and the rest of them are going to be done virtually. And again, that's not an efficient way to do it. It's actually faster to do it while you're there on site, but for safety purposes, that's what we've been doing. Also, currently our inspectors have been making all contact with the customer. So we don't have a system set up yet for scheduling inspections, not for a specific time. I do know that Tucson and the city of North Las Vegas was using a software that was called Appointments Plus that seemed to work well for them. A few weeks ago, I went back onto the city of North Las Vegas's website to review what that looked like, and they had gotten away from that software, and they were using they currently use InterGov, a Tyler product, for their permitting software, and they were using that for their scheduling their inspections now. Now we're also in Gilbert on InterGov, and so I'm interested how that's working, because we schedule our inspections on InterGov, but we don't schedule them specifically for a specific time. So that's something I'll be looking into in the future. Next slide. So this is one of our inspectors that, just to give you an example of his home office, he has his iPad there hooked to a monitor. He doesn't have his other monitor with his plans on it, but this just kind of shows you how they're set up. Next slide. Next slide, Scott. There you go. So post-COVID, we're gonna step back and we're gonna identify the inspections that really make sense to do and continue virtually. Again, once we get past the safety aspect of it, it's more efficient when you're in a subdivision to do all the inspections that are in that subdivision, right? So I'm sure we won't be doing as many virtual inspections as we are currently. We'll be setting up a scheduling process, and we'll probably assign all the virtual inspections to just 1 or 2 inspectors to do at a specific time. They'll do them all in the morning or all in the afternoon, whatever, before they go out to do the rest of their inspections or after the rest of their inspections, with the exception of re-inspects. And so one of the big benefits, and I think it's probably on the next slide, Scott, if you want to go to the next one. One of the big benefits for the customer really is, besides the ability to offer specific times for inspections, that's something we've never been able to do before, at least in Gilbert, because we just run too many inspections. We've never had the ability to offer specific times. The best we've been able to do is give them a 2-hour window. The other part of that is we spend a lot of time every day. The inspectors are answering their phones. Probably the first hour of the morning is answering calls about, when are you going to be on my job? When are you going to make it to my job site? So after they've routed themselves for the day, now they're having to respond to these phone calls. I think a lot of that will go away if we have the ability to allow specific times for virtual inspections. But what as we're going to refer to from the last slide is the second bullet point there, the ability to re-inspect projects. If you can imagine what that would do for a contractor, if they failed an inspection earlier in the day, and there were only a few items that it failed for, now there's the potential ability for them to call that same inspector back at the end of the day and said, hey, we've gotten these items fixed. Do you have time to do a virtual inspection? And we can show you that we fixed these items. It's going to save us the drive time out there and the inspection time the next day. And we've always told our customers, hey, we'll get back here at the end of the day if we have time. But as you know, we just never have time to do that. I mean, seldom do we have time to make a second inspection on the same project in the same day. So my take on this is not about, when I got into this, it never was about efficiency. I think we'll see some efficiencies, but in our smaller jurisdiction, you know, if you have a lot of windshield time, I think you'll see a lot of efficiencies by doing these. I think the biggest thing is what we can offer to the customer. It's just another customer service that we can provide. I think that's the last slide, Scott. You want to verify that? And I'll just take any questions that anybody has. I can tell you, we just ran some numbers. And again, it took us some while to get it going, but we're probably averaging about 10% of our inspections being done virtually. So by that, I mean, so we did, since we've been off, we've done over 26,000 inspections, and you know, about 2,600 of those we've done virtually since we've middle of March. Probably, and it fluctuates from month to month. Probably the highest month was August, where we hit 19% of our inspections were done virtually. And there's various reasons for that. Part of them is just the type of inspections you have. If you have a whole bunch of houses that all of a sudden hit frame stage, then you know during that time period you can have fewer virtual inspections. But we're finding that we really have a lot of inspections out there that are conducive to virtual inspections. There's no reason in my mind that we aren't doing, at least during COVID, you know, underground plumbing inspections are pretty easy to do. Pre-slabs, especially the post-tension, it's pretty easy to do. Even smaller TIs. We do a lot of commercial inspections because a lot of our commercial inspections, we're just looking at small pieces of the project at a time. Certainly D-rates, we're doing all of those virtually. And so that's working well for us. I will say, again, right now it's all about safety. We do have inspections that have actually taken longer through virtual. We had a frame inspection on an addition where people were living that the inspector did from his home because he knew I didn't want him going to the house. He said it took him 45 minutes to do an inspection that if he would have been on site would have taken him 15 minutes. But in order for him to be comfortable and see everything he needed to see and work, and part of it was working with the homeowner instead of a contractor that has a better understanding of what he wants to see and what he's looking for. And so it was a little bit of give and take there, trying to work with the homeowner. Pools are another one that I feel like are some low-hanging fruit where we can provide some great customer service. I tried to work with one specific pool company and it didn't really work out with them. They seemed really interested when I talked with them, but then when I turned it over to my senior building inspector, they acted like they were doing us a favor, when in fact we could have been saving them time. The intent of what I was trying to work out with them was when your project manager goes to check the job to see whatever stage it's at to make sure it's ready for inspection, contact us, and you know, if we have an inspector available, which we typically do, then we can do the inspection for you right then, and you don't have to schedule it for the following day inspection. And so I just haven't had time to reach out to the pool companies and try to make that work, but that's just another one of my goals to try to get done. With that, I'm going to shut up for a minute and see if there's any questions.
I'm not seeing any, Larry.
Wait.
There's one. Hold on.
Come on.
Is that Bob Lee Jr.?
Yeah, I think so. So you mentioned a couple of things through there, and I'll rattle them off and then you can respond. You mentioned PPE that they're wearing on site. customer contact, you mentioned that your inspectors are making all the customer contact. And my question would be, is that typically to the homeowner or is it to the actual contractor? And then when you're scheduling specific times, or when North Las Vegas schedules specific times, do they have a list of, you know, this type of inspection is 20 minutes, this type is 15, that type is 45? So, you know, if they're doing those time slots and kind of guaranteeing them, making it more accurate, I mean, do they use some numbers? I know I use some numbers in Goodyear to kind of give me an idea of how long, but I was wondering if there was something like that. And then last question, verification of location. So is there anything that you're doing to verify the location?
So let me start with the last question. We always have the inspector. Again, the inspector still has, we make it very clear, the inspector has control of the situation. He directs, he's the one that makes the contact through FaceTime or Teams. And the first thing they do is we need to go see a street view of the building with an address, or we need to see something that identifies this project with the address so that we know we're on the right project. Your second question had to do with scheduling. Again, we haven't done the scheduling. I think if I were you and you know about how long your inspections take, you need to designate that as they schedule. I do know that Las Vegas identified certain specific times. So in other words, you couldn't just schedule it throughout the day. If you needed a virtual inspection, you know, we do it from 8 to 10 or 8 to 11 in the morning or something like that. So you can choose any of these time slots. Again, that's something that we haven't really delved into yet, that I'll have to spend more time on and looking at that as we refine it. Because we, again, at the request of our mayor, we just opened this up and ran with it. Something that we were just barely starting to pilot. We just opened it up to everything and started running with it. So, and I don't remember what your first question was, Randy.
You said PPE. What kind of PPE are they wearing when they go on site?
So we provide them with surgical masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, towels, and sanitizing gel that will, or liquid that will wipe down any hard surfaces in their truck, on their truck. We provide them with stuff that they can wipe down their iPads and iPhones with. Yeah, that's pretty much what we're providing them. But for first and foremost, tell them, don't go to construction trailers. You know, call the superintendent, have them meet you outside. Don't, you know, make sure you're still distancing. But yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing.
Okay. Thanks. I know that was the whole list, but you did a great job, Larry. Thanks for the presentation too. That was very informative.
Thank you, Larry. Anybody else have any questions for Larry? Jackson.
Yeah, so I have one comment and then one question as well. So just to piggyback on the PPE comment and the distancing, I think I've talked to most of you through COVID, but just so everybody on the committee knows, that was the information and instructions that we provided back to our members as well, that when your inspectors were coming out on the job site, to make sure that they were mindful and respectful of social distancing, make sure that they had their masks, and make sure that they made available the hand washing stations and the hand sanitizer that we have out on the job sites as well. So hopefully our guys are backing you up on that and are treating your guys respectfully in that regard. Then Larry, a quick question. With these virtual inspections, have you got any feedback or had any issues with just kind of the simple technological challenges? You know, cell service isn't good, you keep dropping the call, video cuts in and out, and if you have had some of those challenges, what do you do? I mean, do you just say we'll try again another time, or what's kind of the strategy there?
So first of all, let me just
we can see because it's not
reiterate that the home builders have been very, good to work with on this. They like the virtual inspections, for the most part. The only pushback we've had from anybody has been on the commercial side, and it's probably because we pushed the limits a little bit. We have an inspector that was even saying, and it's worked well for him. We were doing grout inspections, masonry grout inspections, and he had the mason superintendent go up on the scaffolding and use his phone and a flashlight, and while the inspector sat at his house. And so there was a little bit of pushback saying, I'm doing your job for you. But he was able to see everything he needed to see and pass the inspection remotely. But from the home builder side of things, we haven't had any complaints. As far as equipment failures, I haven't heard that happening on the home builder's end. I've heard of it happening on a commercial project where their equipment was heating up in the sun. So I don't know if we have the inspectors work that out, but if we can't do it virtually, we'll show up on the job. That's the bottom line.
Thank you very much. And Larry, good job. Nice presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Larry, I'm not seeing anybody else waving at me. So I appreciate you putting that together and taking the time and letting us know what that is going to look like probably for us in the future. All right, moving on to agenda item number 9, demolition utility disconnect authorization. And John Sheffer with the City of Mesa is going to address this for us. John, are you there?
I am, thank you. Good to see all of you, especially after our little hiatus. Yeah, the utility demolition authorization. So to give this some context, we had a situation that was basically a near miss where a demolition permit was pulled, and that's effectively over the counter if something's coming to the ground completely. And it turns out that utilities had not been shut off and the demolition started. And that spooked us and our utilities, the local utilities. And we thought maybe it'd be good to have a process that, ensured that those utilities were shut off prior to issuing the demo permit. And so collectively we got together, and special thanks to Sharon, SRP's out here, so she helped as well. Put together a process that would effectively be a sign-off sheet, that each utility could confirm that, yes, utilities have been shut off at this address. Maybe something the contractor would, kind of present to all the other, whichever utilities are applicable, and have them just check off a box and say, yes, confirmed this is the right address. We've shut off utilities here. And we did that with our utilities. And then Southwest Gas wanted to present basically a caveat or a disclaimer. And so we've added that. If Scott, can you pull the sample form up and give you a preview of what this looks like? We've got kind of a draft form that we've intended to start using. And it's just a PDF, pretty basic information, who's the owner, where is the location, who's the contractor, and then just check boxes for the utilities to, as applicable, to sign off and indicate whether service is terminated, capped, and then put any comments if there's anything unique about the site. And then with that, we could issue the demo permit with confidence that those hazards have been mitigated. And then if you notice, you scroll down just a little bit, Scott, there's contacts, for each utility, that if anybody needed to get a contact with somebody that was familiar with this form, as opposed to, you could reach out to a bunch of different people at the utility who may not be familiar with this process. So the idea was to get in touch with somebody familiar. So when they saw this form, they'd be familiar with it and say, yeah, I know what this is. Yes, I can confirm through our database that the utilities have been shut off and confirm that. So we didn't really see it as a burden to the contractor, because that shutting off the utility is something they would need to do anyway, presumably. It's just we were finding that there were occasions where that was not happening, and the threat of that, it could be catastrophic, obviously. So we thought it'd be worthwhile to have a measure in place to verify this, and wanted to present it to the group, see if it's something, you know, anyone else was interested in doing. Happy to share the form or take any suggestions on ways we can make it better. One thing that we're looking at doing, it's one of the other things that has evolved given the pandemic, looking at software called Blue Ink. It's kind of similar to a DocuSign, where something like form like this would show up via email, and you would just click and it would sign, you know, kind of automatically, and then send back the response automatically. And in that sense, the whole system's almost automated, where if the contractor received this form, it could automatically be sent out to all of the utilities, and it would just get signed off as they confirm that their utility's been shut off, and the response would automatically be sent back. We thought that was a pretty slick process. So we're looking at Blue Ink for this, and probably several other processes we use. For example, the temporary C of O, we usually get the owner's signature on a temporary C of O, which is more difficult now with the pandemic. So, you know, an automated system like this that has a confirmation and it's got a kind of a digital signature, you know, that implemented onto a form like this or a TCO, we thought would be a really slick way to not need paperwork, first of all, and then go ahead and get electronic signatures and sign-offs. So just wanted to share that with the group and let you know about the form, and then also what we're looking at with Blue Ink. We haven't started using Blue Ink yet, but we've had a demo, and all our departments are on board. It looks like a really great process. I know a lot of people have probably used DocuSign. It's used very commonly in the real estate industry. It's very similar to that process.
Hey, John, I got a question for you. In setting this up, it looks like, you know, it's just a PDF with fill in the blank, and I'm assuming you're having the customer send it to the various utilities to be signed.
That's the concept right now. We haven't started implementing this just yet, but that's exactly the concept, is that we'd send this to the contractor and say, you know, go ahead and get these signatures, and they could just email it, you know, to these contacts that would already be kind of expecting this in a way, because they, you know, it would be, these are contacts specifically provided by the utilities saying this is the person you need to send this to. Okay.
That's the second part of my question right there, is how do you verify that the signature you're getting is from the utility?
Yeah, that's where, you know, this is pretty easy to confirm. That's where the Blue Ink, I think, would help too, because it would be sent to that email address, and then it would come back from there. So you would know it was the utility signing off.
Hey, John, what kind of, roughly, if you know, the cost for Blue Ink?
For that, I think it's on a per use basis. It's around I think it's around $1 per form. And with the number of these and the number of TCOs, we're thinking that would be a few $1,000s, not a huge amount over the year. I wouldn't do it with, you know, every C of O, but
okay.
I can get you guys in touch with a rep if you're interested in the demo. The demo that we saw was fantastic.
Okay. Bob Lee has his hand up, Mr. Chair.
Well, good. I don't see Bob on my screen right now. So Bob, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I couldn't bite my tongue anymore. I had to speak. So I would like to quote Sharon earlier and say that Paradise Valley would love to steal your form.
I also think that if you think about the hassle and cost of gas, time, even if you raise the cost of all of these various permits by 50 cents, you could cover the cost of the system.
That's a good point. Or as a service, an add-on.
Yeah. if you want to do this electronically, there's a $1 charge. Yeah.
Yeah, and it'd pay off for probably most everybody to say we don't want to deal with the paperwork for 50 cents. Gladly to sign up electronically.
It would certainly make it easier for us to have that one point it came into and that one point person who was responsible for cross-checking that stuff and sending it out electronically, because we're supposed to be going as totally paperless as we can. And yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, same here. We've gone with 100% electronic plan review about 3 years ago, and that's really paid off over the last few months. But the idea is this form would be, even if it's blue ink or using this PDF, it ended up being a PDF at the end of the day either way. And our entire system's PDF based now, as I know a lot of the other ones are going to, and it would be simply a matter of uploading this to a permit and or making a document. You name it. There's different categories inside the permitting systems. Usually, you just pick a name, attach it to this, and upload it.
Perfect, John. I appreciate it. Did you've made this available for Scott, and it's going to be part of the minutes.
Okay.
It's in the agenda packet already.
Take the Mesa logo off and put on Paradise Valley.
Yeah, this form is part of the agenda packet. John, if you're okay with it, we can post this as an additional resource separately, so people can download just the PDF too.
John,
can we share it via minutes? Can we attach it and as a PDF and have it kind of still in the fill out, I guess, fillable format, Scott? Or
yeah, well, I mean, the fillable format, exactly what you sent me, it's part of the agenda packet already. Anybody who had downloaded the agenda packet can get it. I was asking if you're okay with us putting it on the MAG website.
Oh, sure.
And people can download it from there.
Yeah, if there's a standard one used throughout the valley, that would be fine too. But
yeah, we'll put it up there, and then you guys can have your people edit it to take off the Mesa logo and change the contacts and stuff, whatever you need.
All right. Any other questions or comments regarding the utility disconnect authorization form? All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 10, which is the updated MAG Building Codes Committee membership. I'm going to assume that we have a couple of items that need to be updated on there. So if you would, please get with Scott and let him know of any changes in the membership. And so that way we can have a updated MAG membership roster. Agenda item number 11 is the survey of code adoption. If you have any, if you're looking at changing your codes in the very near future, or if you recently changed your codes to update them, please let Scott know, so that way we can have an accurate record for all the jurisdictions in a central location for all of our customers to reach out to and take a look at.
Since we hadn't met in a while, I went through and tried to visit everybody's websites, and I did a massive revision and updated a lot of stuff. But if you see anything that's not updated, please let me know.
Well, we're going to try and solve that issue with agenda item number 12 right now, Scott. So that way you won't have all that extra time to just serve people's websites. Topics for future agenda items from the committee. Does anybody have anything right now that they would like to ask to have brought before the committee? And if not, then please think about it and get it to Scott, and we'll put it together. Does anybody have anything now that's pressing that they would like brought before the committee? All right, seeing none. Scott, I tried, man, but we'll see if we can get you something in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and with that, I believe that is the last agenda item.
Yes, and you can just adjourn us. You don't need to take a roll call or vote or anything.
Perfect. All right, thank you, everybody, and we stand adjourned.
Good to see everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Nice seeing you again.
Take it easy, guys.
Thanks, everybody.
And ladies.
David Smith, I thought you retired. You're muted, buddy. You're muted. Hey, Mary, just in the next meeting, and Scott too, and Mr. Chair, I don't know, but I know I wasn't here when the meeting started, but perhaps just a little brief explanation to people on the meeting on how Zoom works, because I don't think some people saw the chat window throughout the meeting. And I know I had raised my hand a couple of times throughout the meeting. And I don't know, maybe Mary or Scott, one of you could help with that, so that when if people want to speak or whatever, they could raise their hand, and then one of you could kind of usher that in or something. But I went to a Zoom meeting once without knowing some of the tools, and it wasn't very good for me. And
one of the technical challenges, Randy, was when we share a screen, some of those sidebars go away.
Well, yeah, but they don't have to. They don't have to. So that's just it. I didn't know that, but even when someone's sharing a presentation, you can still see the attendees and the chat and the video of people. So it all depends on how you set it up at the beginning. But you have to exit full screen and then go back into it. So
this is our first. Mary and I are responsible for 2 MAG committees. This is the first one we've done on Zoom. We haven't met with you guys since last October. We haven't met with PopTech since last October, and this is our very first time doing it. So
yeah,
good news. You guys did a pretty good job.
Yeah, I think you did a great job. But I think maybe for your next one, you might want to show people how that works, because it is nice to be able to see the presentation, the video stuff, and then the participants and the chat.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And Tom wants you to share your snacks next time.
I know. That's why I turned my camera off. I'm like, wait a minute, I can just stop my video. But when you get brought fresh blueberry cake with icing, you got to eat it. I mean, it was warm, so I had to go.
Benefit of working from home there.
Yeah.
I think I'm hungry.
Yeah, right. Hey, great to see everybody. Thank you guys for what you do.
All right.
Hey, thanks, Randy.
Nice to see y'all.
Missed the lunches before the meeting, but hopefully we return to normal someday, huh?
Yeah.
Someday. But in the interim, I think we had a great turnout today.
Yeah.
15
or 16.
That was really good.
Yeah.
So hats off to y'all.
Good job.
Good afternoon. I got